Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hey, Rob, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
Hey, Vic. I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Super excited. I was really looking forward to having you on here. For the audience, I met Rob once out at a channel event. You're going to hear all about Rob's history, his involvement in the rock and roll industry, and various other things he does in his launch into public speaking. But I met him at a book signing where a friend of mine, John DeLozier, who's an executive in the channel, who has utilized Rob to come in and do cool things, to spice up events, to tell his stories. It's really been a difference maker. I mean, you know, how many times are we going to get a conversation from somebody who's been around the world with, you know, some of the biggest rock stars in the world? So I'm going to stop there for a second. Rob, why don't you take a minute, introduce yourself to the audience, tell them about what you're doing, who you are, you know, full scope of what you do. And then I got some questions lined up, and we're going to go back a little bit. We're going to dig deep.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, 1 minute. Talk about pressure. I've been known to talk, so a minute goes by super fast. Yeah, Rob Shanahan here. I am, first and foremost, a drummer. 10 years old, I picked up the drumsticks, fell in love with it. Couldn't get enough drumsticks in my hands at all times. Then when I was 13, I got a camera, and that opened up a whole new world to me, and I just kept doing both, photography and drums, and it led me on an unbelievable journey. I'm 58 years old, and it's all I've ever been doing. Rock and roll drumming, rock and roll photography.
Amazing.
And I've been shooting the greatest of the greats. I just can't believe how lucky I got. And, you know, it's just a matter of being prepared 100% of the time and knowing my craft and working on it, you know, every day in some form.
That's fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch us real far, like today, forward, and I'm going to reel us way back. That's okay. So
let's take the way back
here for the audience. Rob has many books out.
2 books.
Well, what about the Stones book you just showed me?
Oh, yeah, I didn't publish that one. I just contributed.
Oh.
I did the photography for that one.
Got it. Okay, so this book is called Volume 2, Rob Shanahan, Through the Lens of Music Photographer Rob Shanahan. I have both. I have Volume 1 as well. They're both signed. Thank you, Rob. These books contain, and I want people to buy them because they're unbelievable. There's a little
look at
card
that cool page.
there.
Just by accident, you happen to open up Santana and his lovely wife, Cindy Blackman.
Oh, how great is that? So this book is just a fascinating view into the world and catching the moments of rock and roll. I'm going to lead with my most important question about this book, and I'm going to pull it up. Is this a picture of an actual checked gold top?
I'm so glad you asked. First question is the perfect question to lead into Volume 2. And Billy Squier is going to love you for this. That is Billy Squier's 1958 gold top standard Les Paul. The song he recorded on that guitar, Everybody Wants You.
Yeah.
Guitar
right there. That is amazing. Well, when I saw the cover, I go, that's got to be a checked Les Paul. My bet is like, you know, you're not creating that. That was somebody's guitar. And what I hoped was that I'd get exactly what I got out of it. So it's Billy Squier's 58.
Look on the backside.
Oh, it's great. The stop tail piece.
Yeah. So if you open up the book, it's actually, you know, one photo. If you wing it, open it up.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's awesome. That's fantastic.
And those checks in that cover are so freaking cool and beautiful.
They're earned and real.
Man, I'm holding that guitar and I'm looking at that thing going, holy crap, the history of this guitar.
I know. I've had some really old, 50s and early 60s vintage guitars, and they just do different things. You could feel, for non-musicians, they might not understand, but you can feel all the music that was made on them before.
Exactly.
You really can. Big difference. I had a early 50s Gretsch acoustic, an early 50s Gibson L1, I had a 61 Les Paul Jr. I've gotten rid of all the vintage stuff because, to be honest with you, Rob, I live in Texas now.
The weather.
And the summers are fine. You know, when it's hot, the air conditioning's on and I can keep the humidity at a nice level in this room. You could see I like to display the guitars and play them and pick them up daily. But in the winter, it gets so dry here that I am pumping 2 to 3 gallons of humidity in the air a day, struggling to keep it at 40, 42%. And these guitars like 50. You know, they want 50% humidity.
Is that the number?
It's another full-time job. And I'm like, I just couldn't risk screwing up a guitar made in the 50s because it's hanging on my wall because I like to look at it.
That's a common thing with guitars on display in walls, I've heard.
Yeah, it is. But otherwise, they're in cases. So
my vintage drums are in cases.
Are they really?
And totally safe and 100% controlled humidity. So getting back to the patina of the instruments, it's like sitting at Charlie Watts's 1958 Gretsch kit.
Man.
And looking at the finish up close, just all the years of Stones tours, and it's just got that perfect sound and just an amazing, amazing instrument.
Before I transition to bring us back to your start, have you seen now for guitars, they make this box? It's actually a speaker. And there's a SD slot in it, or you can download a song or type of music on it. And you attach this box to the sound hole of your acoustic guitar. And you're constantly playing acoustic music of your style into the guitar. And the thinking behind it is, I get the wood to resonate to what would be the sound of me playing, and I can accelerate that vintage sound.
Oh,
I've not tried it. I don't know if it works or not, and it was a pretty interesting thought. But there's a vintage accelerator box out there right now, and I'm like, people are insane. This is such a quirky but cool idea. I wonder if it works.
That's amazing. Amazing what they're coming up with.
Let's go back.
Yeah.
5 years old, drumsticks in your hand.
No, 10.
10, sorry. 13 with the camera. Right?
Yep.
So now you got the drumsticks in your hand. You're loving it. Tell me what you're doing.
Yeah, I remember the high school band director walking into my 5th grade class, my first week of 5th grade, asked if any of us kids wanted to play an instrument. Mine was the first hand up. I couldn't have raised it any higher or any faster. I just knew I wanted to play the drums. I was always staring at drummers growing up. And that was the day I became a drummer. He put a pair of drumsticks in my hand and gave me my first drum lesson book and a little round rubber practice pad. And I went to town, started woodshedding, as they say.
Yeah.
And this guy was amazing. I ended up playing with him until I graduated high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, played 7 years in my high school jazz band. When I was in 6th grade, I got recruited into the senior high band. I was always practicing, and I got on the kit, got a drum kit for Christmas, and just started woodshedding, and I got it real quickly. I started grooving pretty soon after getting the kit, and he introduced me to jazz. Fell in love with guys like Buddy Rich and Louie Bellson and Joe Morello and all the great jazz drummers, and I got into that. It was a lot of fun. Played in the high school marching band, the drum line, all that good stuff. And
amazing. What was the first drum kit you had?
It was pretty crappy, secondhand Blue Sparkle, Japanese kit, name brand unknown.
Okay.
But it served its purpose.
Yeah, of course.
It was, in my mind, a super deluxe pro drum kit.
Absolutely.
Zildjian cymbals, that was a good thing. And a Speed King pedal.
Yeah, the best pedal back then.
Which was awesome. I was using the same pedal as John Bonham and Charlie Watts.
Speed King was made by Ludwig, if I remember correctly.
Speed King, yeah.
Ludwig Speed King.
Yeah, and it had a real awful squeak to it. Hence the name, the Squeak King. But like most Speed Kings, they squeak. But it was a great pedal, and, just getting the fundamentals down was more important than anything else. And then as years gone by, I just started adding more drums to it, another rack tom, and then a set of tri-tom, Remo rototoms,
Nice.
more cymbals, and I kept getting a bigger drum set. And then later in life, I realized I'm really a 4-piece drum kit kind of guy, like Ringo and Charlie.
Absolutely.
Like a real grooving kind of, I love small drum kits.
So do I.
Playing more with less.
You know, my silent, well, not silent, one of my obsessions is that when I owned a recording studio, I had a really nice, like late 70s, early 80s Ludwig drum set.
Mm.
And it was a 4-piece, 22-inch kick, 12 tom, maybe a 16 on the floor. And I was searching for snare, right? I needed that snare that just would really kill it. And I have a friend who's a drummer, and he comes in to record one day and he brings like 4 or 5 snares with him. And we're going through the snares and he's like, this one's just a piece of crap. It's like an old Slingerland. I think it was Slingerland or Gretsch, but it was like the Ringo blackish tortoiseshell, right? From the 60s. And he's like, you could just have this one. Yeah, the Marine Pearl. And he goes, you could just have this one. And he goes, but we're going to put up my DW snare or whatever, or he puts up his DW kit. When we record, we get great tracks. Well, when he leaves, next day I get to the studio, I'm like, I'm gonna go tune this. I'm gonna get this snare going, and change the heads, lube the lugs, buy new snares for the bottom. And I'm a big, basic. I like the sound of the ambassador heads. That's my thing. To me, it's the most natural sounding head on a drum.
I agree.
You're the drummer. You're going to disagree. Oh no, you agree. Even better. I
totally agree.
Okay, yeah. So, Rob, I would go to the studio 4 hours before sessions just to play drums.
Really?
I actually got okay. Like I could definitely, and I had a click going in my head, just clicking away and laying grooves down, and It was cool. Well, I had done a batch of sessions after tweaking the snare drum up. It was a monster. The snare was a monster. And my friend Charlie comes back in. He's like, dude, what freaking snare are you? What snare is that? I'm like, dude, it's the snare you gave me.
I want it back.
Well, he goes, crazy. So what happened was when I shut the studio down, I could have sold it. I didn't want to keep it. I called Charlie. I said, I'm giving you back the snare. It's a vintage snare. You know, it's crazy. Do me a favor. If you ever get rid of it, please call me. I will buy it. Do not trade it. Like, I want it back. I'll put it in a closet if I have to. It's that special to me.
Wow.
Yeah, sold the freaking snare.
Yeah,
he sold it. So it was long gone, but it was, I think it might have been a Slingerland snare. I don't really remember, but, good snare. That's my extent of talking about drums. I'm not a drummer by any stretch of the means, but I share your passion. I think the drummer is the heartbeat of the band, the old rhythm section, keeping the bottom down, but, drummers make or break the band 100%. You know, sometimes you can be a little sloppy.
As your drummer.
Totally.
Yeah.
So
I've seen some really good bands with mediocre drummers and it doesn't work. I've seen some really great drummers with mediocre bands, but it works.
It works.
Yeah.
It works 100%.
The groove is there and the song is moving, it can cook.
So you're practicing, you're obviously getting advanced pretty quickly. I mean, if you're in 6th grade and you're getting invited to play at the high school level, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
So
it taught me a valuable lesson.
What did it teach you?
Working with more experienced people really raises your game.
Oh, yeah.
It brings your level up. So I've always done that my whole life. Like when I first got to LA, I met older drummers and photographers that were in the business.
Mm-hmm.
And I just always asked questions. I've always was looking for a mentor, people to guide and help, not reinvent the wheels, find what successful people are doing and emulate what they're doing. And now through the years, I've carried that through. Like I learned so much from guys like Keith Richards and Charlie, and just day before yesterday, I was shooting all afternoon with Sammy Hagar, one of the greatest.
Yeah, amazing.
That guy's almost 80 years old.
That's crazy, isn't it?
I know, it's so hard to believe.
He doesn't present 80 at all. I mean,
he's not. No, he's not. He's still crazy man on stage.
I saw him back in the summer, by the way. I was in New Jersey for a few weeks.
You
And
saw
the
him on the
best of,
last tour with Michael Anthony and Jason
yeah,
Bonham.
Jason was on drums. It was before Kenny had to sit in.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Joe Satriani, just
and
amazing.
Joe. And
I was with all those guys on Monday, and just all of them, just so amazing. And I saw that tour last year too. I did a couple of shows with them guys, and I was just blown away.
great. Are they going to
Love
go
it,
back
good.
out?
Yeah, they're doing a Vegas residency, and
When is that?
that starts end of April, runs through May, and that's at the Dolby Theater at MGM. The
Amazing
super
there.
cool theater there, and that's what we were shooting the day before yesterday. All the photos and assets and tour photos and group photos and individual photos for the Vegas run. So super cool, super
I'm
proud.
going to have to take my wife out there because we've been to the Dolby Theater. We saw Bruno Mars there. I think it might have been last year.
Yeah, that exact same theater.
Yeah. Great sound, obviously.
Great theater.
Great theater. All right. So you're playing drums. You're 10. You're accelerating quickly. You're playing with the big kids.
Yeah.
It's yet another thing we have in common. If my brother were on this episode with us, he'd go, "Oh, my brother was a pain in the ass because he's 5 years older than me. And I'd be running after trying to truck with him and his friends and be like, get out of here. You're 5 years younger than me. You know, when you're 5 and your brother's 10, it's a big deal.
That's a big step.
It's a big deal. And, but you know, he would always say, yeah, my brother always wanted to hang out with the big kids. So I get where you're coming from, but tell me how you got a camera in your hand. Where did that come out of? Was that a left field thing? Was it something you were checking
My
out?
mom wanted to buy a camera for the family, have a family camera in the house. So we went down to a pro camera shop in Minneapolis. And that was a pretty big deal for my mom driving down there.
Mm-hmm.
We lived about an hour west of Minneapolis, little small farm town surrounded by cornfields, 1,000 people in my hometown, pretty small community.
Nice.
And my mom really didn't like driving down in the cities much, but she wanted to go get a camera. So we get to this pro camera shop, and the guy behind the counter puts this Pentax ME. It's in fact right there on my shelf.
Oh, really? You still have it?
Puts this Pentax ME camera in my hands. And besides drumsticks, that was the coolest thing ever in my hands. And I was instantly hooked. And that was the day I became a photographer. I was 13, read the manual over and over again, and I learned the camera. I learned everything about shutter speeds, f-stops, ISOs. I learned the mechanics of photography as an art form, not as a picture-taking machine like a digital iPhone, like everyone's an iPhone photographer now. But back then, creating great art on film. And I'm really glad that I grew up in the analog world of photography, because it really helps me understand the whole science and art behind it.
100%. I feel the same way about growing up in analog recording studio.
Yeah.
You know, and I have friends that still maintain and own all that gear. I have a friend that has an OG studio with a Calrac desk that's 70 something channels and more vintage gear than you know what to do with. And he's got old MCI 2-inch machines, but he's got his Pro Tools. Like, he knows where to go, but his stuff sounds old and warm. And it's cool. Super cool.
Recording on 2-inch tape?
Yep.
Love it.
He'll record on tape, but then he'll pop it over to the Pro Tools, and he's figured out a way to try to maintain as much as that comes from the 2-inch.
I see.
It's been a labor of love for him. And, you know, I'll connect you guys on Instagram. You'll see his stuff. He's always working on cool stuff.
Love it.
But he's still, you know, every time I talk to him, dude, I got 5 more Pultecs, and he's always fine. I got 18 more channels. Some guy was getting rid of an old board. It's the exact stuff that I have. And, you know, he's still after it. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
What was your first real gig as a photographer?
I was starting to get asked to shoot like family events, like within my family circle, like friends of my aunts would ask me to shoot their weddings. It was actually probably their second weddings, now that I think about it.
Okay.
And they were like in a flower garden somewhere at the Arboretum or something, not big fancy church weddings, but
Hmm.
I started doing that and taking a lot of pictures of Minnesota scenes and animals and things around me in my world. And I would take my film up to the drugstore, block from my house.
Hmm.
If I dropped the film off before Friday, the Kodak guy would be there, pick it up on Friday and bring it back the following week. Like he made a stop there every Friday. So whatever you dropped off before Friday would come back a week later. Hard to imagine. It'd take a week to see my photos.
I know.
Everything's so instant digital now, but
Were you hip to the Clark processing facility?
I was not.
My dad was a big camera guy. I think maybe one of his first SLRs was a Canon, old vintage Canon AE1. And he was always snapping pictures. I was always into photography. He had 9 million Polaroids. I mean, it was nuts back then. But there was a service. We lived in New York, and there was a service where, we could go to the corner store. Sometimes it was the drugstore. Sometimes it was actually like a camera shop or something. Drop the film off, come back and get it. But there was an interim step before it went a little bit more mainstream. There was a company called Clark, and they had a package, and and on the outside you check 35 millimeter, ISO 400, how many prints you wanted, did you want doubles, what size did you want, and you pop it up, you throw a few stamps on it, you go out, probably come back in around that same week, and it was cheaper.
Wow.
It was cheaper. And we have boxes, Rob, boxes of those photos. My parents are both deceased, and my dad got the craziest pictures. But even when he was in the service, Rob, we have little slides, thousands of slides of him, like in Italy or in Iceland.
Wonderful.
So he was taking photos back then. What was it, the process where they came on slides?
Yeah,
Can you explain that?
Processed or a K14.
Okay.
Either a Kodak slide or Fuji slide film, or the K14, which was the Kodachrome.
Okay. Was there a particular camera you had to use to get that?
Any 35 millimeter camera. Actually, they made that into a 1/4 film too. The medium format.
Okay. So that was just a selection he made for the output. He wanted slides.
Yeah.
And then he'd pop them in the slide machine, and we'd shoot the projector on the wall and click, 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 and they'd go around. And that was cool. Yeah, I never knew why he selected slides. I guess that's just how he liked to do it.
Yeah, maybe for archival purposes. That was the thing back in the day. The most truest color rendition, and it's probably the truest film.
Interesting.
Of capturing, as you see.
My brother just coordinated taking all those boxes, and he separated them into 3 lots and sent them to a place that's digitizing them all. We got the first 2 lots back. Pictures of people like, oh, that's my great uncle's Aunt Mary's sister. It's like so many pictures of so many things from like the 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Good to have.
Yeah, it was neat. It was really cool.
It's your family history.
Big time. So you're doing the weddings, you're at the Arboretum. What starts happening? You got the drums running in one lane.
Boy,
you got the camera in the other lane. Like, come on, man. Where did this start going?
You're taking the deep dive.
Yeah.
Well, I had a lot of rock and roll posters and records in my room, and I was constantly staring at the visuals, the record covers, reading every liner note, inside in the sleeves, every photo, record covers, back covers, my Modern Drummer magazine. I would stare at that thing for, I would have it memorized by the time the next issue arrived in the mail. And, just for some reason, music and photography was just always swirling in my head. And when I got to LA and started shooting musician friends, I realized that's really what I enjoyed doing the most.
Nice. What year was that?
I was the best at it because I know musicians, I know the language, I know the hang.
You know the look.
It's so much easier to shoot something that you love.
Yeah, you're not going to tell, Eddie, hey, fix your hair. It's like, dude, come on. We're not fixing my. Yeah.
That's funny because I was with Sammy and Michael and those guys on Monday, and I direct them. But I was talking to my brother yesterday. My brother is also a drummer, by the way. He's 4 years younger than me, and he and I, check this out. We camped out for 3 nights for Van Halen tickets back in 1985. 3 nights at the box office. We were first in line, and we ended up with front row tickets to Van Halen. It was the first tour with Sammy Hagar.
Okay.
Those guys come out, and we lost our freaking mind. It was so freaking awesome. And after the first song, Michael Anthony sees us. We're in Minnesota. We're the two rockers. We're the rock and rollers.
Yeah.
Blast that night. He comes over after the first song and high fives us, and that just blew my freaking mind. And I've been working with Michael since 2005, and I've never told him that story, and I've shot him so many times since. But last fall, we did a fundraising event together with Phil X and John Five and Sammy Hagar, and it was a super cool event. And my brother flew out for the event. I got him in, and I pulled Michael aside backstage, and I told him the story with my brother standing right next to me. We finally got to tell him, 1985, I'm like, Michael, and we ended up becoming such good friends. And
Dude, I remember that.
He had no idea.
No, of course. Well, there was another guest I had on here who had a similar story. Remember the band in the 90s, Trickster?
Oh, yeah.
So Stevie Brown and the band came out of New Jersey, so we knew them before they got signed. And, I reconnected with Stevie. I had him on the show. And he told me this amazing story and then had the proof to back it up. Oh, and I'm going to send you the little clip after we're done with this episode. He said he was a kid. He might have been 15 or 16, much like you, naturally, equipped to play guitar. He really was just like a young kid who was unreal at 15, 16. He had this whole vision of who he wanted to be and where he was going to play, and he idolized Eddie Van Halen. And they'd get tickets to go to the Meadowlands when it was called the Meadowlands. And they have, seats that are like a million miles back, and they are determined that they're going to be belly up to the stage. And so they make their way down through the course of the night, and lo and behold, they are freaking belly up to the stage.
Awesome.
And there's a spot where they're doing like maybe first encore, and Eddie's ringing it out, and his buddy says, dude, go jump on stage now. And so Stevie launches up on stage. His buddies are pushing him up, and he runs right up to Eddie, and he says, let me play your guitar. What? And so Eddie goes like this. And he gets behind Eddie and reaches around him, and he's shredding. Okay. He might have been doing the finger taps and Sammy Hagar runs up and goes, oh, this mofo, hi. He was just like totally couldn't believe it. And then they come back, the guys come from backstage. He goes, I thought they were going to pummel me. He said, but no, they just took me off stage. They were cool about it. Well, roll the tape forward 3 years later, Steve's band gets signed, and he's on like 3 lines down on the card on a bill with Van Halen.
Man.
And Stevie's just this outrageous, kid who's going to do anything. He's fearless.
Oh, right.
And he goes up to Eddie, goes, hey, I'm in the band that opened for you, Trickster, but you might not remember this. And he tells him the story, and he goes, holy shit, I do remember. He goes, Sammy, this the kid who jumped on stage in New Jersey.
That's great.
It's completely epic. But, when your heroes become your peers and friends, and God, that's just got to be amazing. You've shot so many people. So you go to L.A. I'm sorry, I get so caught up. I love this stuff. You go to L.A., you're shooting friends.
Yeah.
Okay? They're rocking, you know the vibe, the hang, the look, right? You're a perfect fit for it because you're a music guy, you're a musician. So and you're a study of the craft of photography.
Yeah.
You're studying every function of the camera, how to make it work, how to bend it, make it work in ways it might not supposed to work to create art. That is art, by the way, right? When you step outside of the norm and create something unique.
I like to think so.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So when did you get your first big break? Who was the first big gig you had and who'd you shoot?
Well, let's back up a little bit. When
All
I
right.
first got to LA, once I realized that I needed a job, uh,
Helpful. Money's helpful.
yeah, that always helps. You get tired of living in a van. I was van life before it was a
You were.
hashtag, by the way.
That's it before it was a
Uh,
thing.
but I didn't feel homeless. I felt like I was living my dream in LA. And
Right.
I had my brother with me and my brother. And we were here to dominate LA. Anyway, decided time to get a job. And I got a job at an amazing pro camera store. Uh, it was more of a commercial photo lab with a camera store attached in LA, one of the biggest. And I started meeting, some of the really great top pro photographers of LA
Great.
and really started working on my craft, fine tuning my message, my eye, and really getting good at photography and more experienced. And I talked the owner of the lab into letting me convert one of the storage rooms into a photo studio.
Oh,
Yeah. So he invested in the lighting and I got it all set up and he started advertising. I started doing headshots in that tiny little storage room. It's probably 8 by 10 feet, just
hey,
enough.
in
But that's
LA,
all it
there was no
needed.
shortage of need for headshots, right?
That's all I needed. And it was the late 80s. Everyone in LA needs a headshot.
Yep.
So I went to work, got busy. And, first it was realtors, executives, business, and then models, actors, musicians. And I found, working all day at that craft with all the different people, I really worked on my people skills, my relationship building training. And that's what photography is all about. Shooting all the big rock stars. It helps. I mean, you really got to know photography, but what really helps is making the connection with the subject, being able to
Core.
break down that barrier, whatever that invisible barrier is between you and subject. Once you get through that and find the truth, the kid inside of all of us musicians that exist, we're all teenagers just so in love with music and music was everything to us.
Yep.
We all have that. When I say we, I mean all us musicians. So once I find that within a person and can get there, that's where the magic really happens. And I learned that by shooting all day in a studio.
When was the first time you discovered that was a thing? Like, it's cool to hear you talk about it now and the perspective you have, but a lot of times we're learning these lessons along the way. We don't really get, there are moments where all of a sudden it comes on like, holy crap, I've been doing this for 5 years, 10 years, 2 years. It's this. When did you really know that you were building the rapport skills? Like, was it early on or was it later after you did it so many reps?
I don't think I really actually thought about it as
Okay.
much as I just knew that it felt right. Like when I was in a photo shoot, I get to a zone and I know that it's a place of creativity with another human
Mm-hmm.
and it's a two-way street and not just a one-way of taking photos, but actually making photographs with another person, if you will. And I just subconsciously or unconsciously worked on that muscle for many, many years, not really realizing what it was.
Yep. But
Ignorance is bliss,
yeah,
so
but now
they
you can
say.
you're pretty articulate about what it is and what it was, and some people go a whole life without recognizing that that's a skill.
Well, I look back and when I see my books in print form as
Yep.
a collection instead of the individual photographs, but when I see things as a nice book form, a collection, I can see a pattern. And Steve Jordan said it best, my last book,
Okay.
which, you saw on the cover, I did it as a tribute to Charlie Watts, one of my dear friends, amazing mentor, an amazing human being. And it's just, unbelievable how much of a relationship I was able to build with that guy who's notoriously quiet and reserved, but for some reason we connected on so many levels. But so I did this book as a tribute to Charlie, and in the epilogue, which we'll get into, I'm sure, when you want to start talking about the book. But,
Yeah.
I asked some people that were really close to Charlie if they would contribute to the epilogue and, to get Charlie's daughter to write something, Steve Jordan, Jim Keltner, Bernard Fowler, and most importantly, and most mind-blowing to me, is Keith Richards.
Right.
They all have such a love for Charlie and wanted to contribute, which is really great. But once the book was published, I got everyone copies. And Steve Jordan, man, he said, Rob, when I go through your book, the one dominant vibe and feeling I get from first to last page is happy and joy.
I had joy.
Bring out so much joy
was my
out
word.
of people. And
joy was my word.
I think that's because I love finding that inner child in these major artists. They all have them. I find it. And we're shooting as teenagers again. We're collaborating as if we're back in my bedroom with a, friend would come over with his guitar and we would, create some music, as bad as it was. But we were collaborating and playing, and there's no other better feeling. And when you can do that with a really great, amazing A-list artist with a camera, and just him or her with an acoustic guitar or sitting at a piano or behind a drum kit or walking the streets or whatever the location is, that's the fun. That's the magic.
Do you have any very particular levers that you pull to get somebody in that zone? Is there like a little magic trick you do?
Well, one of my go-tos is ask about their first instrument. Hey,
okay.
When did you really realize you could play guitar so great? Or what was the process? Or tell me about that first guitar or drum kit or whatever. That's the instant.
The twinkle comes
That's
out, right?
The twinkle.
Twinkle comes out.
Yeah, I had this old 1958 Ludwig drum kit or whatever, whatever the story. And that's the beauty.
That's the grand slam right there.
Or
because
being a big music buff, especially with drums, I know, all the great drum tracks you hear so many times. I listen, I study, and I play them, and I try and replicate whatever it is. But to be able to ask the drummer, how did you do that fill? What drum kit were you playing on? Tell me the details of that track. I want to know how you did. Oh, yeah, man, I was playing on this drum kit, and we threw some towels on the heads or whatever the story. You start getting into the why. Not the how, but the why. And that's when the real fun stories come out and the magic happens. And then I'm a music fan listening to stories. Oh, and I have my camera. Let's take a few photos. Click, click. Now let's get back to this story. I'm not there just shooting away. We have a conversation.
Oh, that's amazing. When I was in the music business, I had a partner and we produced a bunch of records together, or label acts. And we used to go back and forth. We could run the band 20 hours a day, and, I'd get sounds. He'd come back in. He'd get some guitar tracks and produce what's going on, grab a solo. I'd come back. I was the vocals guy. He just didn't have patience for getting through vocal tracks, and I freaking loved it.
That's so cool.
I loved it. I loved getting the best performance out of somebody. But when somebody was really struggling that I knew had all the skill but just couldn't get out of their own head, I'd get it from the console. I go through the control room. I go walk in and I go, hey, dude, sorry to interrupt. Might seem like shitty time. They're getting the dinner order together. Did you want something special? We'll be done by then, but I want to make sure you get something to eat tonight. Did you get your thing? Oh, no, can you get me whatever? Oh, yeah, cool. Okay, thanks. No dinner order. Pattern interrupt. get the brain away, completely away from
Great.
the angst of I can't hit the note, I can't get the feel, I'm not doing it right, all this stuff, just like detach the brain, pattern interrupt. This was before I was a Tony Robbins fan and I knew actually what I was doing.
Oh,
And
nice.
so pattern interrupt came in. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Pop, grabbing it. Holy shit. 2 or 3 takes.
He's not thinking about the track anymore. He's thinking
Not
about
thinking
dinner.
about the track. He's thinking,
I'm thinking
he's
about
not
my
thinking of
steak
perfection.
sandwich coming in.
Yeah, he's not thinking of perfection. But that's why when you said, hey, I bring them back to their first instrument, dude, that's genius.
Yeah.
Because when even when you said that to me, of course I flashed back to my first guitar. I had a giant, my jaw hurts. I had this grin while you were telling me that. And I got right back to the feeling of walking with my dad in Brooklyn to this music store on Ocean Parkway and
Wow.
Kings Highway on the corner. And it was a shitty $59, made in Japan, no name electric guitar that was like a Fender Jaguar clone.
Nice.
And I brought him there really to get another guitar that was $39. And I had the money. I'd been saving, working for my grandfather. And the guy was like, this guitar is not really great. This one's probably going to be a lot better for him. And I'm like, I don't have enough money, Dad. And he's like, I'll grab the rest.
Nice.
And so I have this whole experience around that first guitar. And I can only imagine everybody you talk to's got that story.
Yeah.
And greater, because chances are a lot of those guitars were like a 56 Les Paul Jr. That was the cheap Les Paul, right?
Or they were the $59 knockoff, and
Yeah.
then they, through the years would upgrade.
Yeah. That is. Did you know that was the kill question, by the way? Or did it just work one day and go, I'm going to keep doing that?
Well, it was something that really interested me. It wasn't really necessarily a tool that I use as much as it was
Your interest.
as an interest.
Yeah, I guess that's what made it so genuine.
And that's one beauty of what I've chosen to do with my career is I've been given access to all these great artists that you just don't get. So a long time ago, I thought, wow, this is my opportunity to really have a one-on-one, unscripted interview, if you will.
Yeah.
Or this is my chance to ask, Paul McCartney, for example, this is my chance to ask him, questions and really find out,
So cool.
Hear it from the artists themselves. And
Amazing. So give me some
clam up. I've seen this so many
really?
times. Most people, when they get in front of a major artist or model or actress or, somebody famous, they clam up.
They don't know how to find the common ground.
They don't know how to act or react, or sometimes people go overboard and become like overzealous super fans, crazy fans. And some people just, clam up and become shy. And I just always let me take that back. I just always remained myself, just my music lover self, and, just be who you are.
Who just happen to know ISOs, f-stops, white balance, like everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's neat. All right, so take me out of the back room where you're doing headshots.
Wow, we keep going back.
If you're not in a rush, I'm loving this story, and I know everybody else is. So
Well, here's the deal. I just was
the journey.
busy in there, and, I'm a networker. Yeah. I had people calling me direct for, work outside of the studio, and I just got busy. And I felt like it was more important that I built my own client base and worked on my own stuff. And I gave my notice, and I had my first business card printed, and that was the day I became an entrepreneur.
Sweet.
I went from drummer to photographer to entrepreneur, and I moved my business into Venice Beach. I've been here since 1991.
You're still there?
Still here in Venice.
Wow, fantastic.
And started working. Get this. So driving around LA, I'm a new kid in town. I'm from Minnesota. Everything in LA is cool, right?
Yeah.
And I see this big, huge building on Wilshire Boulevard with the NFL logo up on
Okay.
top. I'm a huge Minnesota Vikings fan, so I found out that that was the home of NFL films and NFL photos.
Wow.
So I started calling and calling, trying to get an appointment to come on in and, try and get a gig as a photographer with the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, they probably got sick of my phone calls. They called me back
Wow.
and I got a meeting with the head of NFL photos, Mr. Paul Spinelli.
Wow.
Went in and met with him and, I guess my enthusiasm was infectious, as he says.
Okay.
So eventually he gave me an assignment. I got my first photo assignment to go shoot a game for the NFL at the Coliseum, LA Raiders, Cincinnati Bengals.
Epic.
Yeah, it was epic. That's the word of the day, epic. It was probably 1990. And that one assignment led to another and to another and another. And eventually I was getting annual contracts from the NFL to go shoot games.
Amazing.
Yeah, they would have me shoot here in LA. It was back when we had the Raiders and the Rams. I'd fly up to the Bay Area to see the 49ers or down to the Chargers when they were in San Diego. And I'd go fly back to Minnesota around Christmas time to go shoot a game at my old beloved stadium with the Vikings.
Great.
And yeah, I just got busy shooting stuff with them.
When did the rock and roll stuff really pick up?
So I was still shooting musician friends, and one of my buddies, a drummer who I used to go see every Sunday night at a little bar down in Boardwalk in Venice. His name is Scott Crago. He, great drummer, good friend, and he hired me to shoot his headshot for an audition he had coming up. Big audition. Because I'm not telling you who it is, I just need a headshot. So I did the headshot. Turns out the audition was for Stevie Nicks.
Oh, wow.
And he got the gig.
Amazing.
Yeah. And he's now drumming with the Eagles. He's been with the Stevie Nicks tour, got him to Don Henley when Stevie and Don did the duo.
Yep.
Don Henley started hiring him to do his studio records and then his tours and pulled him into the Eagles. He's been with them for like 25 years. It's amazing.
Wow. Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's a great story, and he's a dear friend. And that headshot got into the Stevie Nicks tour program. Their management called, asked if they could use that photo. And then a month later, I get a call from Paiste Cymbals, the Swiss cymbal maker, called and asked if they could use that photo for their catalog. And by the way, we have a whole roster of drummers that we need photographs of. Would you like to start shooting drummers for us?
Holy cow.
Yeah. So
because you showed up for free, right? Did you charge your buddy for the small shot that you did?
Yeah, probably not much.
Not much, but you just showed up because you loved it, right?
Yeah, probably not. I don't remember the detail. Probably like $50 or maybe even a beer or something. I don't know. Knowing Scott, it was probably for a beer.
Yeah, even better.
Yeah. So, but
dude, that's amazing.
I started shooting all the great drummers under the Paiste cymbal roster, like, Stuart Copeland, Alex Van Halen, Abe Laboriel Jr.
I love Abe.
Jim Keltner, Sheila E. And when I met Sheila, that was really when the magic started happening. Her and I connected immediately. And then when she found out I was from Minnesota, and by the way, my hometown is 18 miles from Paisley Park.
Oh, wow.
Prince's studio, where Sheila recorded her first record, her first #1 hit record, Glamorous Life, recorded right there, 18 miles from my house. And it just so happens I was living there when she was recording.
Amazing.
Like 1983, 1984. That was the year I graduated high school. So we immediately, hit it off, Minnesota connection, and she loved my work. And I started shooting everything for her: records, music stuff, tour stuff, music mags, drum ads, cymbal ads, stick ads, Zildjian, Paiste, DW drums, all sorts of stuff with her. up until her last record, which just won a Grammy. She just won the Grammy a couple of weeks ago.
I
So
know. It's
amazing.
crazy, isn't it?
So great. So great.
So great.
I've been working with her for so long. It's amazing.
I want to ask you an entrepreneurial question. I
Yeah.
think this will resonate way beyond all these great stories. So while you're transitioning through these, these lanes of your life, and you go from, these contracts to entrepreneur or working with somebody entrepreneur, picking up contracts, how did you really start valuing, your work and knowing how to get compensated fairly for the value you brought to your craft?
Yeah, you have to really believe in what you're doing and what you're contributing is of value. To all you photographers out there, any photographer that has to be watching this podcast, I want to say this to you. Don't undervalue your craft, your work, your cameras, your tools, your vision. And I feel like I've been working on my craft since I was 13 years old. I've put in the time. I've done all the hard work. I've spent so much money and effort learning photography in the early years, just learning the craft. And there's a value in that. And sure, there's a lot of people that own expensive, beautiful cameras that can take pictures that don't know anything about photography. But when you really know the craft and can create some unique art, there has to be a price tag on that. And I've always felt that, people want to go buy a car. They can go buy a bottom of the line Toyota, or they can go buy a Mercedes. I want to be the Mercedes of the photography world. And I feel like my work speaks for itself. And I feel like I put enough into it. I put in so much more than what you're seeing on the photo shoot. And I think a lot of the problem is, here's the problem. Art directors see me working and they think, well, he's having so much fun.
Yeah. Why am I paying him this
Did you
much?
see the post? Did you see the post from 2 days ago from the Sammy Hagar shoot?
I did. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Where I'm laying on the ground.
You laying down on the floor. Yeah.
Like Anthony's got his foot up. Me and Sammy, we're all having so much fun. And that's the number one comment I get when I post photos like that. Everyone says, well, you're not working. You're having so much fun. Well, I've done the hard work to make the photo shoots go real easy and comfortable. And that's what makes the artist comfortable and relax, when you make it fun and easy. And that only comes from experience.
You said a lot there, and I want to open up a couple of things. So first and foremost, about your value and all the work you did. I had a friend tell me when I was in the music business, spending 20 hours a day in the studio, pre-publishing deal, pre-getting paid any money. He said, "Man, if you ever went out in the real world, you're gonna be so rich." And I go, "Why?" He says, "You work harder than anyone I've ever met for nothing."
That's good.
For free. Imagine if that effort got recognized and got paid for. But, when I got into technology, Rob, I knew nothing. Okay. I was like, I could walk into the power station and start recording in 10 minutes. I knew consoles, I knew outboard, I knew signal flow, I knew mics. Like, I was a student, much like you studied the camera and the art form. And then I had to study the people side of getting people comfortable to perform. But that wasn't the big deal. The big deal was, so when I got into technology, it's like I woke up in somebody else's clothing the next day. I didn't know who I was. My hair was as long as yours. Maybe not as thick, but I had I'll show you a picture here. Let me jump on. This is a legendary shot. This is a copy of my backstage pass when I was with John on the Slippery When Wet tour, because my old partner in the music business was in a band with him. And so we knew John, and I flew to Rhode Island with him on a gig. But, look at that mop. Come on.
Are you sure that's not a picture of Billy Squier?
Can you imagine? Can you absolutely imagine? Well, it was around that, around that time. But, I was out of my skin. Like I didn't know what I was doing. And, I guess the point I'm trying to make, and, knowing your value, you come along, and I started going down this path, and I realized all the skills I had in the studio, were the ones that made me stand out in business, in
Oh,
technology. It was
yeah.
it was the EI, emotionally intelligence, the EQ. Okay. It
Nice.
was the ability to get people comfortable, to have conversations, to help people succeed, to care about what they're doing more than, the outcome I'm getting. Because I always had this saying, you raise yourself by raising others. Like, you're
Love
never
that.
going to raise yourself up and look around you and go, look at what I've created. The only way you're going to succeed is by pushing everybody up, and then you rise with it
Yeah.
all the time.
Well,
And
in
then
the
it
keynote world, we call that all a rising tide raises all boats.
raises all boats.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And so the value piece, nobody sees all the work that comes before and behind it. People see you, you get up with the camera, you whip it out of your bag, you got half a dozen lenses with you, maybe, maybe not, maybe some stand, maybe some lighting. I'm not sure what you're doing, but I'm sure you make it look easy. But
Yeah.
the reps are in, the Outliers book, 10,000 reps. I'm sure you've got 100,000 reps out there
Yeah. I
that make
probably.
that look easy. And so I'm happy to hear that you found your path to, and that you shared the message with other people. And it's not only for photographers, anybody who brings a difference to the craft of what they do. And even in the business world, just know who you are, know your worth, and know your value. And as long as you're contributing, it's not a favor to get paid for the value you bring. I'm happy to hear that you figured that out early on and that you've stayed true to it.
Well, it works great in theory.
Yeah.
The problem is finding, getting the budget approved.
Yeah.
You can feel you're worth that. And, when people ask what my day rate is, I have, and I tell, and if they want to negotiate, if we need to negotiate, I'm totally up for it. I'll work in a budget, so
Yeah.
it's not ironclad, but you need to know like a baseline price. And like my gallery prints, that's something that I'm really into now, which we started in the year of COVID, 2020, when everything shut down and my whole schedule for the year bottomed out. It was lovely sitting at home with my wife and daughter, and I loved the girl time, and hanging with my girls was the ultimate summer. And then eventually it's like, all right, I really want to get something going, get busy, something. And it was the perfect opportunity to spend, all that free time on building an e-commerce store, which is very
Nicely done,
detailed,
by the way.
a lot
It
of
works
work. Thank
real
you.
well.
A lot of work, and you got sizing and pricing, and there's a whole lot of issues involved. And I went to work and I started putting in 16-hour days nonstop for like a month, getting that thing up. And, that was one of the things that I was wrestling with, was pricing on my images and trying to put a value on what the reprints were going to be. And we decided to do open editions, limited editions, some prints on super amazing epic metals, and they're beautiful and amazing museum pieces. And anyway, just
Can we talk about this book a little bit?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I started off with it because I just had to know about the gold top, and the fact that this is Billy's gold top is just
By the
blowing my
way,
mind.
check out that foil stamping on the cover. See
Oh
how
no,
cool
it's
that is?
incredible. Well, I want to tell the story about me buying this book, if you don't mind, because it's going to share.
Please do.
We haven't, by the way, for people listening, like Rob and I haven't talked about this. So you're getting truth serum here, all right? Big time. So I got volume 1, and I was fortunate enough to get it for free because I was part of a corporate event where I'm sure they bought 1 million books from you, and you went and did your thing and you signed it, and I got the nice volume 1. But when you agreed to come on, the very least I could do is be a supporter of what you're doing. And so I'm going to go out and buy some stuff. I started with the book. I plan on getting some other things. Let me tell you about the experience of buying this book. And I'm not saying this because you're on the show, okay? I would give you shitty feedback too if it were bad, because
I love this.
Right? First of all, the ordering process was the site to order these things is clean. Okay, I'm a big UI, UX guy.
Love
in
it.
Delivering technology to people for the last 20 years. The UX is clean. And you would think everybody would get that right. Not everybody gets that right. A lot of people, it's still clunky. number one. Number two, the quality of the images on the web are great. So you get a real sense of the kind of quality you're going to get back.
Right.
I ordered it. I got a notification the next day that was already out and gone. But here's the biggest surprise I got, and I don't have it with me here, and I wish I did. Should have brought it back here. This thing came in the nicest fucking box I've ever seen.
Oh, my shipping box.
Dude, that box, I don't want to throw the box away.
Everyone's saying the same thing. We got your book, and it's sitting in the box on our coffee table. I'm like, well, no. The box is a throwaway. That's just a shipping box.
I wish there was a way for you to ship it where that label didn't have to stick in the center of that. Actually, you know what? Little heads up for you. Put that label on the back of the box.
You know what? People have asked.
Really?
Can you send that again, but put it in another box, because I tried peeling the label off and it peeled off the box.
Peels off the box, because I want to keep this in the box. Like it's a kit to me. That. I know it wasn't, but this is the beauty about the attention you paid even on the shipping box. And for those who don't see the box, the shipping box is this almost, gallery-like collage of other things you've taken. Backstage passes, photos.
Here it is. I have one right here going out.
Guys, look at that
without
freaking
the shipping
box.
label.
Oh, man. Well, we're going to run into each other in the same place. And
How cool is this box?
Dude, that box, I've never seen anything like it. This is a 10 out of 10.
By the way, you know what this is? Let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
My wife, my New York wife, by the way, the New Yorker like you'd love it. Also a graphic designer, did the book.
Oh, wow. She did the box?
We work on all this stuff together. And whenever she comes into my office, I have this file cabinet right over here. It's one of those big floor to ceiling, like big double door cabinets, not the sliding drawers.
Gotcha.
Whenever I come home from an event or shooting, a concert or whatever, you get the either a laminate or the stick-on photo, they all go on that cabinet. So my cabinet over here is actually this.
So wait, did you take a picture of the cabinet?
What I did was I photographed each individual.
And then she cut it up.
Yes. So we could move stuff around.
Nice.
Kind of, massage it and create some art with it. But anyway, we had fun putting this together. And my favorite, look at this one. Van Halen band photo.
And photo.
One of my favorites. And this one, Rolling Stones. And look at the CW right here. See
Charlie
that?
Watts.
Yeah.
You're his guest.
So I get the CW, and I'm telling you, when you walk around with a pass that has CW on it backstage at the Rolling Stones, you can go anywhere.
Anywhere.
So if you're a friend of Charlie's.
Yeah.
You're special because Charlie doesn't invite anyone.
This is his one friend.
Oh, Rob's here.
Yeah.
Charlie's friend is here. Okay. Yeah.
So first of all, send my appreciation for the time to your wife.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you, I'm not throwing the box away, and I will figure out how to get a blank one from you at some point. Even if I have to pay you for it, you ship it in another box to me. I want to keep them together. I do. It's a kit. I got to have.
Well, then what you need.
Okay.
All right. Now you got
all right.
The slipcase.
What
Volume
the heck
1
is
and
that?
2.
So tell me what that is. You can put them both in there.
Yes. Here, let me get one that's open.
Can I order that on your site?
You used to, but we're sold out of them.
Yeah, you're right. That's what I need. Just keep me in mind if they ever come back.
We'll make them come back. I'll get them available.
Okay. Yeah, that would solve my thing. But even my wife said, wow, what's that? What's in that box? My wife's a giant music junkie, by the way. Loves music. Okay. We've got a number of books that we've had and collect things like this. And, I just see her sitting in one of the chairs, just, looking through it. And she's been through this book already. She's like,
love it.
It's just unbelievable. We love it. I'll catch her going through it 3-4 times, at various times. Like all of a sudden she'll just pick it up again and see stuff she didn't see before.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it's super cool.
And then how about the beauty of the little, my wife calls it the scoop pages, the little thumbnail with the little backstory of the photo. Yeah. Every 32 pages, it's like a little section
Why 32?
Yeah, just because I didn't want them all in the back. I didn't
Okay.
want people to go through the whole book and then, have a whole catalog of thumbnails. It's super cool that way.
Got it.
And it was something Hillary, my wife, came up with.
Nice.
And I'm like, why hasn't that been done before? But let me tell you, since we did the first book in 2011, since that book came out, I now see it in photo books.
Oh, here's the thumbnails with all the
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
It's
my
been
God.
copied.
Really? They got your thing.
People got hip to it and realized, wow, that's the way we should be doing photo books.
Can I ask you some questions about my creepy crush?
Of course.
What was it like shooting Christina Aguilera?
Oh, amazing.
She's
Show
amazing.
everyone that photo.
Okay, wait, let me
Hold
pull
up
to
the
it.
book.
Jesus, this photo. First of all, she's maybe, in my humble opinion, the most talented singer ever.
She's incredible.
She's absolutely incredible. I just had it open to that and I lost it. I'll find
I
it.
talk about her in my keynotes because
You do? Why?
all about the power of believing in yourself, having a vision, and just going for it.
Yep.
And I've had that conversation with her.
You did?
Young kid.
Tell me about it.
She grew up on Staten Island. I know.
I wonder why I love her.
I love her.
You know what? I'm gonna take a little second dupe of this picture. I'm gonna drop it in a B-roll.
Okay.
When people say, "Where's the picture?" You'll see it come into.
It's like
thing.
page 3. If you start from the beginning, you'll get right to it so quickly.
She's so gorgeous.
She told me that she used to, as a little girl, dream about singing on all the great world stages, and
Christina, if you're out there,
just made it happen.
oh, that doesn't work out between you and your husband.
And
you
look,
can negotiate with my wife for this hunk of man.
I gave her the facing page to Keith and Mick.
Man,
she's
and aside from her beauty, because she is beautiful, honestly, voice of an angel. I mean, my wife and I debate often, Whitney, Mariah, and I'm like, it's Christina all day long, all day, every day.
Incredible. The
best grit, the best range, the best attitude, the best soul, not just vocal gymnastics for vocal gymnastics' sake. Well,
amazing.
Don't get me wrong, Whitney Houston was unbelievable. Very tragic ending, but she was incredible.
I'll tell you a story that nobody gets anywhere. You'll get here today.
Perfect.
I shot her a handful of times. One time was at Grammy rehearsals. This was probably, that photo ended up in my first book, so it was right around 2010. And she was singing James Brown, It's a Man's World.
I remember, I saw it.
I was at rehearsals, like 5 feet away from her, and she's belting that out in a little rehearsal space up at Center Staging in Burbank.
Man.
And it was bone chilling. Like everyone in the room were all looking at each other like, she was just all over the microphone. And when she got done, she went over to the catering table, got a napkin, came back to the microphone and wiped off her lipstick off the microphone. She crumbled up and threw it in the wastebasket underneath the, catering table with snacks and drinks or whatever. The end of the day, I'm packing up and I'm walking out and I look at that garbage can and I see that napkin.
Did you take it?
I brought it home. It's in that cabinet with all the passes on it. And I put it in a Ziploc and I sealed it and I wrote on the outside. I could probably go and find it for you.
Oh, it's epic.
And I wrote on there, the day at Christina Aguilera, Grammy rehearsals, blah, blah. My wife thought it was the grossest,
the creepiest thing ever. Yeah. She's like, Rob, the word
it's kind of
therapist,
cool.
If you break it apart, stands for the rapist.
Well, let's not go there. It was only lipstick on a napkin. And I thought it was pretty sweet.
No, it's great. I was like, because while you're telling that, I'm like, I would have taken that. I would have sealed that in a plastic baggie, and I would have had the forensic evidence. It would have been great.
Well, I'm glad you got a good laugh on it.
Oh, it was great. Well, I got a good laugh out of another story somebody told me that you told them. I'm going to lead you and see if I can get you to tell it here.
Yeah.
I heard that you were on a plane once with a very, very, very legendary, famous drummer. and he was wondering, God forbid something happened on this flight, what would people say? So, you're laughing as much as I laugh. I'm telling you, Rob, when Coach T told me you told him that story, I left for 20 minutes. I thought it was the greatest chop anybody could take at his bros ever. Please, if you would, tell this story.
It's a good one. Well, it was on one of my many epic journeys around the globe with Ringo Starr on his private jet, which is unbelievable experience in itself. But I'm just, sitting there thinking, man, 1988, I arrived in LA in a van, sleeping in my van, eating mustard sandwiches. I'm flying around with Ringo Starr.
Oh, great.
And I'm just kind of staring out the window, thinking about, life and how dreams can come true. And then out of nowhere, Ringo says, Rob, if this plane goes down, the headline's going to say, Ringo Starr and others die in plane crash. And I'm thinking,
I thought that was the greatest thing I ever heard. That was so great.
You never get too big in your head because there's always somebody much bigger than you in the room or in the plane. And
did you guys just start rolling when he said that?
Yeah.
That's really funny. Who else was funny. Were a couple other people on the plane with you?
Yeah, there were, the band. So.
Okay. Ringo dies in plane with others.
Yeah, it was actually, Ringo sits in the first seat facing cockpit, and I was in the first seat facing to the back. So we're facing each other. And right across from us was Gary Wright and Billy Squier.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm looking out, the window on the left side of the aircraft, but it's on my right because I'm backwards. And he was right across from me. And I probably can tell he was sensing that I was thinking something seriously deep. And
that's a great story.
I have a way I can bring Rob down to reality really quickly. And I'm like, okay, very nice.
You working on any other projects for your materials, content, anything like that?
Yeah, every day working on something, this is my business. So
you got something coming out, something you're working on putting out? Is there something you did that you never published?
Well, project that I'm working on right now. I'll just tell you what I'm currently working on. And that was shooting with Sammy and Michael and Joe Satriani and Kenny Arnoff just the day before and creating all the assets for the Vegas residency. We're going to have group photos, individual photo. We have a lot of stuff that needs to be done for advertising and marketing for the casino. So when you get to Vegas and you see all the billboards and all your stuff, all the stuff of the Sammy tour, you'll be mine. Yeah, it's so cool.
Well, I've been looking at your photos for longer than I ever realized because I used to manage a music store, guitars, drums, bass, all this stuff. Do the amount of Paiste cymbals stuff in the 80s and, when I was there, had to be you.
Yeah.
Had to be you. Every one of those and all the modern drummers. And I don't know if you know this about Coach T or not. That dude has the biggest collection of Guitar Player magazine, and I think it was called Guitar for the Practicing Musician, might have been another.
Wow.
He had every published one from like the day it came out, I think until like it stopped print. He might be, so he still has them in crazy boxes. Like he had what if I'm like, dude, all this stuff's on the web. Like, what are you doing? It's like, no, this piece, and I knew this, and this transcription. I'm like, how would you even know how to index them and catalog them? But he had all this stuff. But I've been looking at your photos. I'm so glad to know that somehow I've been connected to your work a lot longer than this episode. So, and this
that's
book,
nice.
And the prior
people
books,
know my
neat.
photos. They don't necessarily know me, the guy behind the images, which is super cool. I've been doing it for so long that when people do see my work or meet me and see a book, go, oh, I know this photo. I've been staring at this thing. It's my favorite Eddie Van Halen photo. I had no idea that was yours. I mean, that's super cool. I love it.
Well, the one, and I can confirm that for you right now because there's a photo of this book of Eddie facing away from the stage and he's on one knee with his shirt off.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't count how many times I've seen that photo. It's an iconic photo.
When Eddie passed and all the tribute videos came out with the slideshow of images, that one was always included, which was super cool.
Amazing.
It was not cool that it got stolen and people are using it for free. But
Oh,
look,
really? That sucks.
I'm a huge fan. I love the guy. And it was such an honor to work with Van Halen and be on stage with Van Halen and get that photo. It's the least I could do is, allow it to be in some tribute videos. It's quite the honor, but that was one heck of an experience.
I bet.
That was
One of the best bands ever.
my first time shooting Van Halen.
Ever.
And that was up
Amazing.
in Boise, Idaho. And I remember during sound check, Alex telling me, talk to the band and we want you to be on stage during the show. Just do your thing, man. Go wherever you want.
Cool.
It was super cool to have all access with Van Halen. It was amazing. Yeah, that one moment, Eddie walks out center stage to salute Brother Al, and I fired off 2 frames super quick because he was literally on his knee in a second and up. It was a real quick thing, and I knew immediately when I shot those frames. I knew if one of those was in focus, because it happens so fast, you're not really sure if everything's working or exposure or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, if one of those is on, it'll be around for a while. And that night back in my hotel room, I'm uploading and I couldn't wait to get to it. I'm seeing it on my screen and I'm like, holy shit. It just came to life on my computer screen and my laptop. And I knew I had something.
I got 2 last questions for you.
Yeah.
First one is, what's your gear of choice these days? Are you brand loyal? Are you type of loyal? Like, tell me about your current rig.
Yeah, I'm a Nikon guy.
Okay.
I switched to Nikon probably late 80s, early 90s, and I've been loyal. And, I'm an ambassador with Nikon. I've been with them forever. And, in the photo world, much like the music industry, you have your musicians that sponsorships or you see them in the ads with their gear. And it's not quite that in the photo world, but it is. And I would get asked to go speak at photo fests in Seattle, Minneapolis, New York, LA, Chicago, and go and speak to all the young photographers out there, which I loved.
I bet.
I really loved that, and do a slideshow and talk about technical stuff with a group of photographers is a lot of fun for me. And I love being a mentor and helping up and comers, raising all boats with the rising tide, if you will. And then getting back to your question, I've been loyal to Nikon and they've been really good. And I get gear, and like, for instance, when I go to Africa and I don't want to lug my gear, I'll lug some of their gear because I know it's a brutal environment, dusty, and it gets banged around a lot on safari. And, so I get some nice big long safari lenses from them to use. It's great. But currently I'm in the Nikon Z9 world.
Okay.
The mirrorless, which I just started using when they came out the year before, I guess it would have been 2024, early 24, late 23. I jumped into a couple Z9s and I love them. And I got all new glass, all new lenses, and I'm a pro
Nikon lenses or third-party lenses?
No, Nikon. And I'm a big fan of the pro photo lighting, but all my lighting gear is like 20 years old. The big old school metal packs are like this big, they're like car battery size. And they're battery powered, so I can take them anywhere. In fact, day before yesterday, we were out on the streets shooting the band, walking down the street and walking backwards. My assistant's holding the light behind me. It's just a cool battery powered flash.
That's sweet.
They've been around the world with me. They just go in a hard shell case and they get shipped under the plane, and they've never failed me. So I've been using them forever.
How was your transition from film to dig?
I jumped in immediately when we started moving into the digital space. I saw the writing on the wall. And at that time, I was shooting transparencies, either 2 1/4, like big, wide, big 2 1/4 film. And art directors needed it scanned anyway. So I was digitizing all my film and I would upload it into my computer back in the old SideQuest days. Remember
Okay.
the big cartridges and
Yeah.
come a long way. Where like one big SideQuest disc was like 2 megs and it was massive and
Yeah.
super expensive, or
Real expensive.
yeah, maybe if you got a 10 meg, drive or whatever, it was super expensive. It's come a long way. Anyway, I realized that I loved having my film on digital on a screen where I could manipulate, play around, whatever. And when the digital cameras started coming out, it just made sense for me to jump in. And I dove in head first, and I rode the technology wave and the Photoshop world and just kind of stayed on top of it.
Do you do all of your own post-production editing?
95% of it.
Okay.
Some of the critical stuff, I have a retoucher that I love that I found.
Okay.
He's amazing, really, really good. And he's
Great.
really quick, and he gets it done a lot quicker than I can. And
Really?
yeah,
Well, that's cool.
there's an old joke my cousin told me once. My cousin, who is a videographer in San Diego, he told me once, the last 10 hours you spend on an image in Photoshop, nobody's ever going to see it anyway, because it's always
True.
the fine little details. But I love that part of it.
My son is a content creator. And so he, for a bit, was doing videos and shorts and longs and all that for a professional golf coach in the area who has a roster of PGA winners.
Sweet.
And so he got exposure to, the big winning folks, and very demanding job. But, so now he's freelancing and he's doing some work for me. Right. And he was sitting next to me today working on some shorts.
Your son is right there?
He's not now, but he was during the day. Yeah, he was during the day.
Okay.
And I just said to him, hey, listen, these are YouTube shorts. These are not Mona Lisas. These are going to be viewed for 59 seconds or less. Yeah. Maybe hopefully 1 million times if we're lucky, but no one's going to, and they're going to be seeing them on an iPhone with a cracked glass. Okay. Do not let perfection get in the way of good enough. For now, I would like you to focus on output. I know what you're going to do is great. Even if you don't get the little particle of dust out, even if you go back to it a week later, go, should have changed this. I said, the sign of growth is that when you look at your work, no matter how long you look at it, you always cringe at one thing.
Yeah.
Or you notice something like, if I would have got to redo that, I would have do it completely different or so much better.
Yeah.
But sometimes you look at something you did and go, man, I captured a special moment in time. So you for you guys, taking the technical component out of it and being able to get that emotion in the image. Well, that's the magic, right? You're not going to be able to recreate that. That's a one-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
That's well said. And you're right. I am just surprised and amazed at how much the quality has gone down in the way of speed and quantity. I get it. It's a social media world. Everything's this big now. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
We don't want perfection. We just want a lot.
We want a lot.
I come from the world of perfection and making images.
Yeah,
really,
you're an artist.
As an artist.
You're an artist. I understand.
That's the hardest for me to let go of, to transform into but I don't have to. I can still stay true to my art and still do the others too.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. That's great.
But
my last thing.
Before
what's that problem? Oh yeah, go ahead.
I got a problem with it. I have a social media director, somebody that handles my social media stuff, and she's constantly on me. Rob, more video. Just every day, make a video. And I'm like, I can't, because it's going to take me forever. First of all, I'm going to have to do my hair. I'm going to have to get the right lighting, and if I don't like it, I'm going to trash it anyway. It's just painfully hard. And then I see some people just whipping out videos left and right. You know who's really good at it? Sammy Hagar.
Oh, yeah.
Look at his Instagram. Got a lot of
good content.
He puts content up all the time. He's always filming. He never cares where the sun is. He doesn't care how he looks. And it's just free for all. But content is king. I get it.
It is. If you go back and look at some of them, this is going to be episode number 51. Maybe 52. You might be 52.
Congratulations.
But, if you go back and look at my episodes, some of the stuff is just looks like garbage. But I
To
was
you.
making it happen. You know
To
what I
you,
mean?
it looks like garbage, but to everyone else, it's
Yeah, nobody
probably
knows. Like, oh,
nobody
I got
cares.
two beams shining off of my forehead of light. I look like I'm jaundiced. It's yellow. Oh,
Yeah.
I got the wrong, hue set on the light. And it's like that now. Tonight's my first night with my new 4K camera. I think I got
Oh,
the lighting a little bit better.
it looks awesome
Thank you. But
compared
what
to
I do
mine.
notice, if I wanted to critique myself, like you're not getting the real natural wood tone out of the wall behind me.
I see a lot of blue.
Well, I got a lot of blue on there, but you should still see some of the rich from the wood, and I'm playing with it, right? But this is, I said to my son, Alex, go look at video number 1. Looks like, I look, it's horrible, but the content is amazing. The story was amazing.
Yeah, but look at how successful Between Two Ferns was.
That is for sure. Hey, Rob, last thing, before
Yeah.
we started, you said, ask me about this. And it
Oh,
was that Rolling Stones book that you had
I
there,
thought you were going
right?
to talk about keynote speaking.
Oh, we're going to go with that too. I'm not in a rush. Let's do that. But, what do you want to do first, the speaking or the book?
Well, you were talking about your guitar collection, and I started mentioning a project I did many years ago with a publisher named Andy Babuke, who a lot of your viewers probably know him, a wonderful guitar dealer on the East Coast. He and I met at a Ringo rehearsal when he brought copies of Beatles gear to hand to Ringo.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first intro to Beatles gear, which was a amazing, complete collection of all the Beatles gear ever used on stage, in the recording studio, on TV, et cetera, a wonderful book. And then a couple years later, he called, said he was working on his next book. Dun, dun, dun. Stones gear.
Stones gear.
Yeah, look at spot varnish on those too. It's super cool. But this is a collection, and look at that, how thick it is. Super cool, comprehensive collection of, oh, look at this. We just happen to turn to this page.
Yeah. Well, what do you know? Another gold top.
Of all their amazing gear.
Wow.
And it's got photos of Keith, whatever, holding the guitar. And it talks about what songs were recorded with each guitar, each amp, et cetera, et cetera.
Are your photos in this book?
Yes. So I shot the guitars, not all of them, but a lot of them.
Really?
And I would spend days at Stones rehearsals in a room backstage with my white setup and my lighting. And Pierre, Keith's guitar tech, would just come in and bring guitars in. We'd set them up in the studio and boom, boom, shoot. We'd turn it around, front, back, sides, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Shot it at all angles. And while he was in there with guitar, I would get the history of it. Like, oh, this is the one he did Painted Black on, or recorded Wild Horses on, the Hummingbird guitar or whatever. And I was just so amazed. And every guitar he brought in, I'm thinking, well, that's $1 million. That's $1 million. That's $1 million.
Yep. Big time.
Yeah. Keith and Ronnie and Mick collection of guitars. And it was a really, really great project.
Where can somebody get that book?
Yeah, it's probably online on Andy's website.
Okay.
Backbeat Books.
Can you hold up the cover again? Yep. Rolling Stones gear. Now we got a picture of that. We know what it looks like.
Yeah, and here in the back is Charlie's snare drum, which I got to photograph. And,
great.
So then, check this out. Oh, you can see it in my background right there. See it?
It's hard because you're squished in, like we're sharing a frame, so I'm seeing less
I got
than,
it.
than
Yeah,
you
I have a print up here, up on my...
Oh, I see it. Yeah, I see it.
I brought it years later when I got invited to the Stones rehearsals again. I brought a couple copies of Charlie's snare drum, just printed on a canvas print. I brought 2 of them. I wanted to give one to John Good, president of DW Drums, and my dear friend. I thought I'll surprise him. I'll have Charlie sign one to him. And yeah, he was really surprised. It was a cool gift.
Nice.
But I brought 2 because I wanted him to sign one for me from my office, but he kept the other one. He's like, oh, Rob, I got to have this other one. I'm like, well, I was going to keep it and have you sign it for my office. And he said, well, bring another one sometime, next time. So I did. I eventually did get one signed by
It happened.
Charlie.
That's good. Hey, let's transition to your keynotes.
Yeah.
Tell me how you got started in it. Tell me a little bit just about what you do. And then, of course, tell the audience the best way to get in touch with you if they're interested in having an experience like this.
It all started with our mutual friend, John Delosier.
Okay. How did you meet him?
I met him here in LA at a dinner party. The
Okay.
country artist, Phil Vassar, who
Okay.
was his neighbor in Nashville, was in town playing the Walt Disney Concert Hall. And I've been shooting Phil's record covers and tour books for a long time. He's a wonderful guy, amazing friend, invited me to a dinner party. Here sitting next to me at dinner was John Delosier. Introduce himself. Man, I've been to your website. Phil told me all about you. Tell me about Van Halen. Tell me about Motley Crue. Tell me about the Stones. A music fan through and through.
Yep.
And he and I became instant buds. 2 hours later, like we didn't even realize that we were sitting at a table with other people. We were in our own little world.
I love it.
Much to my wife's chagrin, who was sitting next to me. She's heard all the stories, and every time somebody asks me, she's like, oh boy, here we go again. But at the end of dinner, bless his heart, John said, man, I'm going to hire you to keynote speak for my next corporate event with CenturyLink down in San Diego. 1,000 people will buy 1,000 books. Oh, and by the way, we're going to hire your band to open for Sammy Hagar. I'm like, what? Okay. And we're going to pay you this much. And that's when my wife's ears perked up.
Yeah, she'll keep talking to him. Yeah.
Keep talking.
Keep talking.
More stories. Okay, so, you know, I hear a lot of stories. Some people pull through. And months later, you know, we're still connected. We're emailing, we're talking, and we're building our friendship. And I get the dates, we book it in my calendar, and next thing I know, I'm headed to San Diego to speak for 1,000 telecom executives in the San Diego Convention Center, and it was so much fun, and I had a good time, and signed a bunch of books, and met a lot of great people.
How long is the keynote, and what journey do you take people?
I did a 1 hour. They wanted me to do a 50 and then do a 10-minute Q&A. And at the end of my Q&A, we had a surprise guest come out, Sammy Hagar. So John and I and Sammy Hagar did a Q&A, and it was super cool and just a wonderful experience. And it was literally my first keynote. And when I tell my keynote friends this story, they can't believe it. The first one was like...
First one's for 1,000 people.
Yeah, and I'm on a $1 million stage that looks like something the Rolling Stones put together. That this big, massive, round LCD screen behind me, and 2 big screens on left and right. And you know, and I asked John, so what do you want me to talk about? What keynote? What's that? And he's like, just tell him your journey. So I put together a journey and a slideshow, the visuals to match the journey, and it was so much fun, and it went really great. And from that keynote, it launched 2 more, 3 more, and then that one launched more, and I got really busy doing keynotes. I really like it, and it's fun. And as I mentioned before, the year of COVID, 2020, put the skid brakes on everything, including my keynote, but we're ramping up again. And now that the second book is out, we kind of focused for a few years on the second book and the website and getting all that in place. And, I've been slowly ramping up again with the keynotes.
That's really great. I mean, this episode is a good insight to pieces and parts of that story. And I'm sure in your keynote, when you're telling that story backed by contents of this book and many, many, many years of your capturing the 12-year-old child, it's got to be amazing. I've not yet seen it.
It's fun.
But the next time you do one, I'm going to be there. I'm going to figure out where it's, because I know you do them in the channel now, and I'll figure out where it is. And
it's
I'm going to make
fun
sure it happens.
In the way that I love sharing, not my story, but the story of having a dream and what is possible when you really work hard on doing something that you really love and believing in when everyone around you, and when I say everyone around you, I'm talking about my small town in Minnesota.
999 others.
Yeah, when actually the sign said a population of 1,058
Okay.
when I left. So 1,056 people, my brother and I not included, when I announced to my friends and the word got out that I was moving to LA to try to make it in the music industry, when word got out, of course, I'm sure people thought I was either not going to be there long. Well, first of all, nobody from my hometown leaves for LA to pursue anything other than, what's available around. It just wasn't an option. But I believed in it and I wanted it so badly. I made it happen. And but the story is that if you do believe in something and you really love something so much, you find a way to make it happen and you just do the work. And I found by working with all the big stars, everyone has a similar story. So many artists, famous people, celebrated artists, musicians, actors, whatever, it could be in any industry, business, politics, whatever it may be. People that have a burning desire and passion to do something, they just make it happen and make it work.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. You've worked with hundreds of artists, right? Have you exceeded 1,000, you think?
Oh, I would say over 1,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many of those made it easy? It just happened, like somebody gave it to them. They didn't have to work hard. They didn't become good at a craft.
Nobody.
How many? Zero, right?
Yeah, zero.
None. First of all,
Nobody.
being competent in an instrument.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ridiculous. I grew up in New York, but we moved to New Jersey. And I lived in this interesting town called Jackson, New Jersey.
Whoa.
It was a breeding ground for guitar players.
Mm.
Some of the coolest and best guitar players, like guy who's the musical director now for Steve Van Zandt, guy named Mark Ribler, lived around the corner from me.
Oh, wow.
4 blocks over was this kid who used to come watch me play in my garage band, okay? His name was Jeff Weiland. You might not know that name because that's Zach Wild.
I knew that name.
Okay, so and as a matter of fact, he had his old Fernandez Strat, 3 single coils, and he's like, hey, I hear you're doing guitar mods. Can you help me put a humbucker in my guitar?
Whoa.
Yeah, Zach, come on over. What do you want to do? Yeah, I don't want it in the tail, though. I want it in the neck. I want that buttery tone when I go neck pickup. Disassemble, template, the router, we drop it all in, solder it up, right? Freaking nail it, right? But that dude would go to school and he'd be up 2-3 hours before school, play, go to school, get out as soon as he possibly could. His mother was a very well-trained pianist, so he learned piano as well, but he loved the guitar. He was infatuated with Randy Rhoads. And when everybody was doing everything else, he was only playing guitar. That's all he was doing. And I remember he was in this band called Xyrus. And he was local guys and who were out playing clubs and do whatnot. And he came over my house one day and goes, dude, I'm auditioning for Ozzy. I go, come on. Yeah. He goes, Mark Weiss, back to Mark Weiss.
Yeah.
He goes, was at a wedding and, or some heard about it. And he knew about the Xyrus stuff and he thought I was great. And somehow, so he got flown out LA. And I remember when he came back, I look out my window of my bedroom, living at my parents' house. And he comes walking up, got his dog in his arm. He's walking through the neighborhood barefoot. And he said, I go, dude, how was the audition? He goes, I don't know if I got the gig, but I got everybody's autograph. Can you imagine?
Awesome.
Okay. I got talk about like a genuine fan.
Yeah, that's cool.
Right. And then he gets called like a week later, he got the gig.
So great.
And the legend is created. The guy has created some monstrous career. And now he's out on the, the Pantera thing, with Phil and whatnot. And he's a god. He's unbelievable.
That's so great.
Oh, such a cool story. But yeah,
those stories exist.
Yeah, they do. And I love the confirmation constantly when I hear from people who've carved their path. It's like, put the work in, be passionate, love what you do, and the results will come. Surround yourself by great people too. You got to do that.
You talked about the breeding ground of guitarists there.
Yeah.
I've had this very conversation day before with Joe Satriani.
Really?
Grew up in Long Island.
Yeah.
Middle of Long Island, very near my wife's hometown of Belmore.
Okay.
And my wife talks about all the time how much music they had available growing up. Like, you could go see music every night of the week.
Yeah.
And really good bands in really great clubs, and musicians were making a great living playing 5-6 nights a week.
Yeah. I mean,
Joe
Dee Snider will tell you. Dee will tell you he was getting, his Twisted Sister, before they were signed, were getting $3-4 a night in the late 70s.
Oh, yeah.
That's big money.
I believe that.
For a local band.
Also had the conversation with Elliot Easton.
I'm friends with Elliot.
He's such an amazing dude. What a great guy. We became super friends after my first shoot with him. And
can I tell you a great Elliot Easton story that I've never told on the podcast?
Please.
So I'm working with the guy, he's my partner in crime and writing. We catch the attention of some folks at Elektra. And at the time, Roy Thomas Baker, Queen, Foreigner, like legendary producer.
Yeah.
Roy's working, he's like an exec VP of A&R there. So we get to meet Roy. And he said, "Oh, dear, come into the city. We're going to have dinner and we're bringing little Elliot along with us." Right?
Little Elliot.
Yeah. And I go, "Oh, what's that?" So we meet Elliot Easton from the Cars. Now, talk about a crazy moment. 1978, Cars, Philadelphia Spectrum. I got floor tickets and I'm 3 people from the front stage right in front of Elliot when he's playing his Candy Apple Red Les Paul Standard. I mean, and I had a red Les Paul Standard that I worked like a summer and a half for. Like, likely because of him. And so, it's Ben Orr, it's Rick. It's like, I'm a Cars junkie.
Me too.
I knew every song. I could play every riff. I could play every solo. It was Van Halen one that fucked me up as a guitar player, by the way, because I thought I was catching up. Right?
You thought you were riding the wave.
So I was like, dude, I'm in. I play as good as these guys. I know all the riffs.
And then Van
Halen came out. Well, game over.
Yeah.
So we meet Elliot. And it's, the Cars are later on after all this. And he's like, "What do you guys do?" "I love playing guitar." I go, "Well, we do a lot of writing and recording." He goes, "You need a guitar player to play on these tracks?" I love recording in the studio.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So we come down. So he would come for free and just plan on, like, we come in, not know the song, listen to it a few times, do his Elliot thing. And he just loved hanging out. Right.
Love it.
So one day my phone rings. It's like 2:00 in the morning. I'm living by myself, but my now wife, my girlfriend, spending the night, and phone rings. I'm like, when the phone rings at 2 in the morning, you think somebody died. No caller ID back then. Pick up the phone.
That'd be important.
He goes, "Vic, it's Elliot." And I go, "Dude, what's going on?" He goes, "I just wrote a hit song." And I go, "You got to be kidding me." He goes, "You got to hear it. You got to hear it." Boom, cha. He's got like a drum machine. Boom, cha. Boom, cha. Boom, cha. I'm waiting for the song to kick in. About a minute and a half goes by of just this drum beat. Can you hear it? It's going to be a hit. And I said to him, "Elliot, you're smoking too much fucking weed. Go back to bed."
It was just a drum track.
Just a drum track. And so the next day I wake up and Jack, he goes, "Motherfucking Elliot called me last night at 3 in the morning. I go, "No, he played you the drum track." "Yes, he called you too." "Yes, he called you too." But what a lovely guy. To date, one of still my most favorite guitar players. His solos were melodies unto themselves. You sing those solos like they were lyrics.
They're burned into my brain.
My God,
they're so good.
Brilliant guy creating parts.
Good. And what Elliot told me, when they got into the studio with Bob Rock, when they went over to London and they were there for like months and months and months recording, he said the challenging thing was Bob would just say, "Okay, Elliot, for the guitar solo, make it seem fresh and new every time. Like, come up with something. It needs to sound spontaneous."
That's like, not Elliot.
Shit. I know what I want to play, but now I got to make it spontaneous. But when you think about it, that's the word I would use on his guitar solos. They sound spontaneous, like he's come up with them on the moment on that one track. It just happened to be that magic track.
Yeah.
Cool.
He told us a great story about working with Mutt Lange. Boom, 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 4, 5. He said it took him 3 days to do that.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. It was Mutt Lange, not Bob Rock.
Okay,
Mutt
yeah.
Lange.
Mutt,
Yeah.
had to be Mutt.
It was
Yeah.
Mutt. It
And he
was
said
Mutt.
it took him 3 days to lay the rhythm down. Summer. He said, he'd go, no, you're behind the beat. No, you're ahead. No, you're behind.
Whoa.
No, you're ahead. 3 days to lay down a 1-4-5. He goes, we recorded the first Cars record in 3 days, the whole record.
Man.
It took him 3 days to lay that track down.
Yeah, but when you look at it, when you listen back to it and really think about it, it makes sense because it is perfect.
It's perfect.
And it's not Pro Tools.
No.
It's totally organic 2-inch tape, the way it should have been recorded. And that's why it's so perfect.
That guy's a gem. I lost touch with him 20 years ago. I've not, maybe longer, maybe 25. I haven't talked to him in 25 years.
Well, we should reconnect you because...
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I bump into him every once in a while and, we talk and I get him on the phone. And actually, I interviewed him with John DeLozier.
Oh,
After
really?
CenturyLink, John went on to work at, he was VP at 8x8, which is
I remember.
a telecom company. And we started a series, 8x8 Unplugged. And one thing we did is he and I, during COVID, would interview musicians. Did a show. Cool. He and I got to sit and ask Elliot every question you've ever want to know. We did Phil X, and we did Phil Vassar, and we did Sheila E, and it was just wonderful. It was something cool to do during COVID.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to try to reconnect with Elliot, see if I can get him to come on the show. I follow his social media. He still has, Elliot Easton model guitars coming out. I was around when his Elliot Easton Kramers were around, which oddly enough are still $3,000-$4,000 on eBay if you could even find one.
Wow.
The Pro 1 and the Pro 2, a very quirky, cool guitar.
Great for him.
He was just a legend, just a great dude, and a genuinely, amazingly sweet soul. What a great guy.
Yeah.
Great guy.
And a wonderful house. He's a mid-century modern guy. It's a beautiful house. Like
I was only at his apartment in the city. He had an apartment in Soho that used to be 2 or 3 apartments, and then he bought them and turned them into one groovy, great place. It was cool.
Oh, I can only imagine how cool that would have been.
Yeah, that was fun. Hey, dude, amazing time tonight. It was like I was talking to an old friend, and
it
weird,
went
real fast. And knowing that I've been looking at your work probably for 40 years or more.
Well, I'm not that old.
Sure, you are.
Been reading that long.
Well, when was your?
We could say 30 years.
All right, 30's fair.
Yeah.
When were you doing the Peisty stuff?
That would have been 90 to 90 on from 1990.
Okay, so I was staring at the Peisty stuff through that time, but like 89, 90, 91, 92, 93.
Yep, that was the beginning of it all.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing these couple hours with me, the audience. I'll shoot you a little, note when this is popping out. We're going to do some marketing around it.
Great.
And if you have any links you want me to include in the description, I'll put in the link to your store in there. That's easy enough for me to do.
Yeah, that's it. .art.
Okay.
The rockshanahan.art. That'd be awesome.
Can people contact you for Keynote through that same link?
They can reach me through there, but I do have a Keynote site, which is robshanahankeynote.com. Simple enough.
Yeah, good. I'll put that in there as well. And I look forward to seeing you in person sometime soon, maybe at a nice event.
I hope so, because that means I'm keynoting somewhere super cool.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I was supposed to be in Vegas with you guys last week or the week before.
Oh, that Coach T did that. I helped Coach with his deck. Coach had a killer deck.
He was there, and I missed his keynote. That would have been great to see.
He killed it. It was epic.
Great.
It was epic. Are you going to Vegas at the end of March, by chance?
I'll be there. No, not until April with the Sammy residency.
Okay, cool.
I'll be doing some stuff there. What's going on at the end of March?
There's an
conference?
industry event that happens every year. It's called Channel Partner Events.
Oh, yeah.
Channel Partners.
Uh-huh.
And so think about like what JD does, but for the entire industry. So he'll be there, and every company known to be man will be there. It's
I've done those,
very big.
JD.
Yeah.
I have spoken at those, and I have done events with JD at Channel Partners. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Packed.
Massive. A lot of fun. Good times. So
I
I'll be
wish
there
I
at the
was
end of
going.
March. I wish you were going too. Maybe we'll see if we can pull a rabbit out of a hat.
Maybe it'll be a last minute thing. Who knows?
Hey, thanks again, Rob. Really enjoyed my time. Thank you for letting us all get to know you a little bit better. Big fan of your work.
Thank you.
And more fan of the person now.
I appreciate it. Thank
Cheers,
you so
buddy.
much.
Have a great night.
Bud.
Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.